we had, our first meeting was conflicted with another meeting, and then we ran into the dedication of the Veterans Memorial, which ate up a ton of staff time. And then after that, we had illness in the Park and Recreation Department. And so we did not get back to the scheduled meeting that we had wanted to attend. Therefore, based on that, we did come up with a report that that we're really not that pleased about because of the lack of ability to meet. And I don't know, do you want me to read this, Andy, or would you like to? And before, just let everyone, okay, do you want to say anything before I read the report?
No, I agree with you. I wish we would have more time to meet and delve into things a little deeper. The time just didn't make, and the committee wanted it back pretty soon, so.
Yeah.
This is what.
So it is a very, very incomplete report. Our subcommittee met with City Manager Andy Okoro and the Parks and Rec Director Brian Petrie during the month of November. We were given a complete packet of the approved budget for fiscal year 2014-2015. During the discussions with the city manager, various areas of the budget were explained regarding how the bookkeeping system worked and the history of some items in question. Brian Petrie provided the subcommittee with a detailed matrix of the George Ingalls Equestrian Center as a cost center and a budget summary by major categories on the Building Maintenance Division number 737. This was in no way conducted as a forensic audit or analysis of the general fund. Therefore, the following findings or concerns are being submitted without possible solutions, which are and should be the responsibility of the City of Norfolk City Council. Under the general fund, the subcommittee found that the City of Norco is conducting business with a limited number of employees. These employees are dedicated to the city. It would harm the city and its residents to further cut personnel. Under the general fund, under the medical area, the City of Norco spends $750,000 per year in medical and lifetime medical. This dates back to 1986 when the City Council at that time voted to give lifetime medical to employees who worked in the city for 5 years. That was changed in the early 2000s to lifetime medical for employees who have worked for the city for 10 years. For such a small city, this is huge. The current City Council has the authority to stop paying lifetime medical to those receiving both the 5 and 10-year benefits and change it to a much higher years of service or eliminate lifetime medical as most large corporations have. They also have the authority not to grandfather in past benefits. General fund surplus. At this time, there is approximately $5 million in the surplus account. Additional research as to why such a large amount should be held in surplus, the surplus account, resulted in the following information. In the late 1990s, the City Council at that time determined that the City of Norco must keep 25% of all expenses in the general fund in a surplus account. The current approved budget is approximately $15 million, which means we do have the mandatory balance in the surplus account. We would suggest that any additional monies be designated for the surplus account be redirected to the areas of the city such as streets and law enforcement. This is a decision that the City Council should consider. The General Fund Parks and Rec, which is the third largest budget in the city. Ingalls Equestrian Center, in our humble opinion. It should have a separate set of books with a separate sub-cost for each of the areas under that umbrella, i.e. Nellie Weaver, Marino, and Clark Arenas in a pool barn area. This should be set up as a separate cost center to get more accurate understanding of the percentage of return. Right now it's estimated to be 56%. The volunteers who groom the areas are certified on all equipment and save the city a great deal of money, and this could be expanded into many areas. Ideas of additional revenue include, and I'd like to preface this by saying, these were just mere suggestions based on the fact the city is running out of money, and we've got to take drastic measures. And our thoughts, and we could have really expanded on a lot of this, was that looking at what San Jacinto is going through, the citizens were, even though they were warned of dire straits if they did not approve a tax, they felt none of this before the vote. And if we are going to proceed in the areas that you would have us proceed, we need to get serious right now. No free riding days. All riders must pay to use the arena by reservation only. This was stated because it does take personnel to be up there. It takes utilities. It takes a lot in order to allow the free riding right now. Night use for other than events that pay the normal rent will pay for electricity and needed personnel in addition to the fee. Eliminate all free use of any facility for both residents and city uses. Parks. Currently, the city has 17 parks. As an example, Corona, which is more than 6 times larger in population than Norco, has 30 parks. Norco exceeds the norm for the number of parks by population. This has been the wishes of the residents and the city council in the past. Some of these parks are rarely used, but are still maintained. Some of these parks were donated by founding families of Norco and cannot be sold. Some are maintained by LMDs. Some recommendations are: return the least used parks to the original family trust to save the maintenance of personnel costs. Where possible, sell other parks that are rarely used. Macon Park, which is the main park used by organized sports groups, is costly. These groups should pay the full cost of the use of the park. Groups outside Norco who use the park should pay a higher fee. The cost of $1.5 million to refurbish the snack shacks should be paid back by rental to the various sports groups. Right now, they use the snack shacks for their own fundraising and are now only paying the city for the electricity used. If there are any recreation programs that are not self-sustaining, they should be eliminated. Buildings and facilities. Currently, the work needed that the city is unable to do is going out to bid as it should, and this budget should not be cut. Our buildings are old, and as they age, work is needed to keep them habitable. The fire department buildings also fall under the Buildings and Facilities Department, and they are currently working within the required guidelines and budget. Information and Technology Division. This department is responsible for the purchase, maintenance, and support of computer systems. Essentially, an IT help desk who assists all users at the city with computer-related problems, including maintenance and support of the telephone system. The expenditures are $391,944 for fiscal year 2014-2015. That does seem high for a city the size of Norco. This was just approved by City Council for another year. As these employees are on the city payroll, which includes benefits of health, retirement, sick leave, and vacation days, it would be more cost-effective to go out to bid. In conclusion, the subcommittee found areas where savings can be made, but not so significant as to offset the cost the ad hoc committee was assigned to find funding for. Some areas that have been mentioned, such as lifetime medical, could save the city up to $500,000 with council action. It was a council action that caused these expenditures to become so outrageous. Because of recent ad hoc action prior to this submittal of this report, the subcommittee decided it would be a futile effort to delve further into the other departments whose funding requests have already been approved. We also feel that by approving these two areas prior to the submission of the subcommittee's report, these actions have made any findings or suggestions submitted diminished in value. If the ad hoc committee had only waited and proceeded in the proper order for the subcommittee report to be presented, this report could have been presented, discussed, and further recommendations could have been made. As it is now, we feel that this report is diminished in importance and our efforts were for naught. Brenda Dixon and Pat Hicks.
Do you want to add anything, Kathy?
No, I'm just really wholeheartedly with what we put together, and thank you for writing up in the report form. We worked hard, there are other areas we wanted to look at, and we had a chance to do that. And it just seems like it's a few left, our time and effort is being wasted, so I'm very discouraged about that, seriously.
Is there something else that you feel that you wanted to go into further if you were given further time?
Had it been done in the proper order, I think we would have gone through each and every department in the general fund. I don't think that we have a lot of fat in the general fund, but to be able to go through and do some, a more in-depth review, but it's a moot point at this time. So, such is our report.
Does anyone have a comment on that? Somebody want to start? I honestly don't feel that the committee was trying to undermine your efforts in any way.
I don't think they were trying to undermine it. I just made the comment at the last meeting that, wondering why we are approving these areas prior to the report being submitted, and I just thought it was just a little backwards, but Jody was very firm in the idea that we needed to show some forward progress and move forward.
Well, and I think that was...
And the committee agreed.
Yeah. Well, and because there's always room for us to go back and go over specific items that people have questions on. We're not finished with trails yet. And I think that for the most part, we were just trying to make sure that we move forward in each category. Just to get a general, this is a general overview. Even the numbers that we've said that we agree what staff has given us, it's a general number. We could go back at this meeting or another meeting. I wouldn't want to do that without Jody here. But we could say, we would never find $2 million for streets. So we need to go back and make that recommendation to be $1 million, which is, more than the $500,000 that we're getting from Measure A. But it's just, it's a place to start.
You're talking CIP, we're talking general fund.
Right. But I'm just saying, there are, different ways to go about all of this, and there were, we've talked about different tax measures. There's other ways to find money, and we haven't gone over all of those yet. But as we look at the agenda and we find space to sort of have a discussion on something, that's, with Andy's help and Jody, they, come up with, okay, we think we can tackle this item in one night, or it might take two, so let's get it started and then move on to the next half of it, or whatever the next discussion is. So if we were to say, we're going to wait for Lori, I hate to pick on you, but Public Works is really big, and that was a very huge effort that she went into on trails.
I understand that.
If we were to say,
but
we're not going to
dealing
do
with CIP.
anything, yeah. But if we were to say, we're not going to do anything until we get this specific information, then it would take us a year and a half to do this.
Okay, that's fine.
So,
No problem.
I was very sincere when I said that I think that you needed to look into this, and I think everyone felt that way, because we know that the general public is going to have these questions. They're going to want this information.
Well, we have been given 11 meetings of very, very valuable information on the CIP. Jody is the one that decided we needed a subcommittee to look into the general fund. And based on that, we have been given a wonderful, wonderful information on the CIP area, but as the group as a whole had had not had the opportunity to look into the general fund, which was not our original assignment. And but they do interlink. And so based on that fact that they do interlink in many areas, whether it was a spur of the moment decision on her part to have the subcommittee, and so we should just move forward from here. We're fine. We'll move forward from
I have
here.
some questions. So you said we're running out of money and yet we have a very healthy general fund. Are you referring to the CIP fund, or are you referring to the general fund, or are you what?
No, I didn't say that we had a healthy general fund.
No, I mean, $7 million per 25%, which is the norm for most cities.
Well,
And we are generating significant.
you're talking about the surplus.
The surplus, which has risen from 500,000 5 years ago to over 6 million now.
Oh, I understand that, but in talking with Andy, I just wanted to know what the requirement was that was set by a preceding city council. The requirement that to keep in surplus a certain percentage, and that was what I went on.
Okay, so how are we running out of money in the CIP fund? Or
That's what we're being told,
But so you're referring to the CIP fund, not the general?
that we're running out of money on the CIP fund. Well, it's going to affect the
Obviously, I
general
understand.
fund.
Oh, I
It
understand
will
that.
definitely, this is how they're interlinked,
Yeah, no, I understand.
yeah.
Part, well, Andy, the whole thing about the lifetime medical, we've done a lot of changes on that.
Right, if you want to, I would like to take a few minutes to correct some factual errors in the report.
Yeah, there's a few.
In that way, it's going to become a public
Please
record.
do.
As you correctly pointed out, Councilmember Dash, the reserve in the general fund, I think, as of the $5 million that is referred here was as of the end of fiscal year 2013. As of the end of fiscal year 2014, that amount is now 6.1 million. Going further on the bullets, it says that in the late 1990s, the City Council at the time determined that the City of Norfolk must keep 25% of all expenses in the general fund in a surplus account. So yeah, there is a resolution of the City Council that requires that emergency reserve of 25% of total general fund expenditures be kept aside. One thing that though I do need to point out is prior to the recession, we had about close to $8 million in general fund total fund balance.
Exactly.
As the recession hit, and that money quickly diminished. And so one of the reasons why we would not consider leaving just an amount that is equal to 25% of expenditures, which I think is about $3.9 million. And again, that's not, I'm not saying that is a factual error. I'm just
I
commenting
just
on
took
the
the 15, the 15 million at the end of the last fiscal year,
Correct.
which is what was in the current approved.
Right, I'm
general
just commenting on the statement as to, for example, we suggest that any additional money is designated for the surplus account be directed. So in essence, what you're recommending is that of the $6 million we currently have in general fund reserve, you're recommending that once we set aside the 25% reserve for emergencies, which I believe is about 3.9 million or some amount like that, you would recommend that the rest of it be redirected to funding public safety and or infrastructure. Is that correct?
The additional money is above the 25%,
Right.
whichever amount that ends up being. I don't think I gave definite amounts on that.
Right, that's
It was just had to be the 25%
Right.
as mandated.
Okay.
And then it could be redirected as needed to other areas of the city.
Yeah, which is essentially how the fund has been used in the past.
Yes,
And when you get into a situation of economic recession such as what we had before, where we went from the $7 million to something much smaller.
Yeah.
In fact,
I
in
do, I
December
remember
before
well.
we contracted our fire, we were down to $63 million in cash. Part of the need for the reserve in the general fund,
63,000.
yeah, is not just to cushion for the emergencies, it's also to cushion for economic cycles. It is also important to note that you need some cash flow in the general fund in order to pay your expenditures before the revenues come in at the beginning of the fiscal year.
Right.
So that's another reason why you want to do that. The problem with relying on a reserve, which is actually a one-time revenue, to continue to fund, to increase funding for public safety and or to fund infrastructure, which is an ongoing expenditure, is that once you use that one-time money, now you have expenditures that are ongoing that you're not going to be able to fund down the road. So that's why you gotta be careful when you try to use one-time revenue, which is general fund reserve, to fund recurring expenditures, because then you're putting yourself in a situation where that one-time revenue gets used and you don't have that money available anymore to fund expenditures. The other thing I do want to point out quickly is on the retiree medical. I think your 750 comes from what we have in the budget for retiree medical on a pay-as-you-go basis. And I think the $715,000 for fiscal year 2015, is that really 715? Just for the record too, that is actually an understatement of what it costs the city for retiree medical.
But that's even more frightening.
Yeah, well, yeah, it needs to be made known, you know, for the records, so that the information is correct. Is that you're not only just, this is a pay-as-you-go basis. Okay, what we pay every month, the check we write to California Public Employees Retirement to pay for retiree medical. In addition to that, we have a huge unfunded liability that also we are required to make some contribution. And we have been setting money aside and making contribution towards that fund. So for example, this fiscal year, the general fund is also contributing an additional $300,000 into that fund. So the real cost of retiree medical on an annual basis is actually much higher than
Over $1 million.
Yes, so over $1 million. Now, in terms of how we got here, I think that the picture is not totally correct. It used to be that you actually didn't have to work for the city for 5 years. What you would have had to do was have PERS be vested in PERS, which is only 5 years.
Yeah.
Then you'll be
You
entitled
come
to
work
that.
for the city for a week and then retire,
And you
and the
could have
city puts a
retired.
bill.
That's correct. And of course, that has changed now, as you correctly point out. But the most important thing I do want to point out here is that these commitments for the city council to undo some of these commitments, especially with retiree medical, there are plenty of legal precedents that in fact is not just that easy.
I understand that.
Yeah, so I think it needs to be pointed out as yes, the city council has the authority to take that action. It doesn't mean that those actions will not be challenged because these are benefits that are.
But they won't happen unless the effort is started.
Yeah, that's correct.
Just so we discussed it, when we first got on council, we actually went through all this, and we actually put caps, and there were lots of discussions concerning all of this, and as John and then the attorney we also brought in, to quote the technical term, they said there's no way in hell that everybody in California won't fight you to stop you from doing us.
Linda has a company she.
Well, let me tell you about the
Yeah.
Boeing company.
No, but these are public entities, totally different.
And one other big factor too, that you have to keep in consideration, the rules regarding how much retirees get for medical is governed by the CalPERS medical retirement system.
Exactly.
Okay.
When,
Now,
what do you figure the average age of our retirees are? Any idea?
the current retirees, I said they will be in the 60s.
And when do they get kicked out of PERS and into Medicare?
They don't ever get kicked out of PERS, into Medicare. What happens
Yeah, they
is,
do too, because I got kicked out. I got
yes,
opted out of PERS because it's a PERS rule.
maybe
You
that's,
go to Medicare.
right, that's how probably your employer structure that. What happens though is once you get to the age of Medicare, which is 65, you go into a different rate. There is a gap that your rate is lower in terms of what the city pays, but the city doesn't completely get out of it that they don't pay for that retiree. Their rate is then a Medicare subsidized rate, which is a
Yeah,
little
no,
lower
that's-
than,
I
yeah.
got that.
Yeah,
I
but you
got
don't
the
get,
subsidy
so,
from the Department of Corrections.
right, you get,
So, yeah, so, but I'm removed from PERS plan into Medicare, and then I opt into another one, and then any premiums above that, PERS kicks in, and I get an extra $250 a month to pay for the Medicare premium
right.
that I wouldn't normally get if I wasn't in PERS. Yeah,
Right, but I'm just explaining how the city of Norco's premium works.
yeah.
And that is a rate for Medicare eligible retirees,
Mhm.
which is lower than the non-Medicare eligible retirees. Up to $1,250 of that, the city pays on a monthly basis. If your rate is up to $1,250,
Mhm.
or whatever, whichever is low. Okay, so, so really, the savings, because the point I'm trying to make is the savings to the city of Norco for those employee retirees that are Medicare eligible is not that significant.
But it does go down.
It does go down, yes, that's
Yeah.
correct, yes, it does go down.
In 1986, the council voted that if you retired from Norco with 5 years, you got lifetime medical. And in the early 2000s, another city council said, no, it'll be 10 years. What's to say that this city council can't go forward to say, no, it'll be 20 years
Let me try to
or 25
Let me try to
years?
explain that because I did implement the 2004 provisions. There is a special provision for CalPERS called the state's vesting schedule. Okay, so that public agency employers, such as the city of Norco, can elect to have their employees on a prospective basis, meaning back in 2004 when we implemented that, all those employees hired after that 2004, when the vesting schedule went into effect, those employees will be subject to the provisions of the vesting schedule. And or any employee who elects to be to participate in that vesting schedule. Okay, so again, the flexibility with the CalPERS health benefits is not typical for what you see in the private employment sector. So there is this vesting schedule which they allow employers to adopt. And when we adopted it, what it meant was any employee we hired after that, first of all, have to have 10 years minimum in PERS employment, credited service credit. And 5 of that years has to be with the city of Norco. They have to have at least worked 5 years with the city of Norco and a total of 10 years in the CalPERS system. And those employees who meet that criteria and then retire, if they only have 10 years, they will be eligible for 50% of the premium. Okay. And then any additional year they accrue service credit, they get additional 5% until they reach 20 years of employment, at which point they now become eligible for 100%. Okay.
And is
Again, subject to the
Yeah.
1250.
And is it true that the city can opt out of CalPERS?
The city can opt out,
Yeah.
absolutely, for everybody,
Okay.
both current and active. They couldn't do one or the other.
Yeah,
They'll have to
but
do
you
both.
can opt out of it.
That's correct. So you cannot opt
Social
out.
Security, and you go into Social Security.
That's, because we discussed this for almost a year, that's one of the issues.
That's what, again, the pension system is different from
Yes.
the health medical system.
But I mean, there's-
I didn't touch the pension system.
But I mean, there's things that kick in, because we looked at this for a year and tried to figure out ways to cut costs, and it's a can of worms that was really unbelievable. But as it was.
But that's
we-
no sign, but just because it's a can of worms is
No,
no
no, no,
sign.
no, no,
You
I think
can't
that-
open it.
I think, no, I think we did open
Yeah.
it, and I think we were the first ones really to put caps on it. Herb was on the council, they got rid of the one-day wonders, they got the lifetime healthcare.
Raised it to 10 years in 2004.
So if you had changed the provisions, you were saying that was in 2004,
2004, yes.
and then,
But we made a change in 2009
But
also
you
to
now
put a
made-
cap.
Yeah, we
Further
have
changes.
made additional changes of capping the amount that the city provides for their employees,
right.
you know.
Well, and I know other cities have done, similar types of things over the years, and even 2004 or 2009, it's actually been quite a few years, and if you would try to go through this procedure again, it might take you another year or two, but could you then go through and make additional types of changes?
Let me make it clear, the
15
city
years
council
per-
can at any time decide what we want to provide employees is $100 subsidy. And that same amount will apply to retirees, because that's how the PAWS health contract is written. The same treatment for active as well as employees, which if you ask me, that's where the error was made back when the city joined the CalPERS medical benefit.
Exactly.
They should never have done that.
No.
Whoever did that didn't understand how the system works.
That's right.
I
And they
agree.
made the wrong choice. Had they made the right choice, we wouldn't have this huge retiree
Right.
healthcare liabilities.
So we could, this is action for the city council. It was just,
No,
this is
this is a
a
good
suggestion in our,
Because it makes people aware of what has been done. The other flip side that was discussed in 2009 was because of the economic downturn, we felt at the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, we felt that many of the other cities had inflated salaries. And we were going to wait to see what would happen as time went by. Because we did, everybody looks at our people's salaries, but when you look at somebody, an equivalent department head at another city, it's incredible what they're making over there. So we wanted to see what would happen as the economic downturn began.